morning if you're dialing in from the States. My name's Steve. I'm the founder of ADISA. Welcome to itadinfifteen. I think we were away last month, so we returned with November with a guest panel of Chris from Rapid, Karl from Apex, and James from Blackmore. These are all three companies who have recently passed their Standard 8 audit, and I've asked them to honestly and openly talk about why they bothered, what the process was like, and what benefit they think they're going to bring to their customers. So without further ado, Chris, you're first up. It was dead easy, wasn't
it? Yeah. Being completely honest, I thought it was a lot of nonsense to start with when I first read about ADISA sort of many years ago. Just sort of thinking it was something that the big companies were making so that the small companies couldn't really get involved in ITAD and recycling and work with big companies or big clients rather who need all the governance and compliance really. But as I sort of read about it over a number of years really, I suppose, learned a bit more about it and started to understand more about it. It became more interesting to us, I guess, and the process itself was complicated and it took a long time, but it's as you're going through the process, it seems quite overwhelming at the start, but internally it's helped us quite dramatically really make sure that we're compliant ourselves, that we're making sure that we're compliant for our customers, and actually sort of elevating us above some competition in effect, because now we've got the 8.0 certification. We're already sort of leapfrogging some other organizations that haven't got it, and that's a benefit to us. And I'm sure Karl and James will allude to later, it's a good platform for us to be able to partner, subcontract, work out so that everybody's on a level playing field. And we just thought it was a lot of extra admin work that was pointless because we've got ISOs and things like that. But as you go through the process, it's become sort of very apparent that there are many benefits, as difficult as it's been to get to this point. It's been a challenging experience, but it's been beneficial. I mean, how have you found it, Karl?
Yeah, I mean the process of the certification, I think we probably all, everybody feels the same pain. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of kind of internal, checking of internal processes that exist already, and then realigning them back to the actual 8.0 standard. But I think as a business, if you're fundamentally focused on, providing high quality services, to clients and not just kind of, ticking the box almost, and you're going to try and shoot for the highest certifications and highest standards. A bit like if you're running a race, you're not running the race aiming to come fourth, are you? You're running to come first. So, we adopted, we're lucky as a younger company compared to some that are in our industry. We were able to take the standard and almost weave it into the DNA of the business. So, we weren't actually going from 7 to 8. And I know, James, you guys, progressed from one to the other, but I think, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, you went straight into 8.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Yeah,
we didn't have these pre-existing standards which we're having to manipulate. We had process in place. We have a compliance officer, Minda Cornell, that came into the business and put those in place so we could offer the high standards. But what the 8.0 did is give us a framework which allowed us to provide a very high quality very high quality service on a level playing field. And I think from what we can see from certainly within, vastly across the public sector, I think it will eventually just become a barrier to entry. I think the bigger companies, certainly central government, local government, and across the blue light sector, they'll stop using narratives such as, do you conform to a similar standard, and it will be, are you certified? And it will stop us all having to consistently repeat the same quality questions because they understand what the schema itself is for 8.0. So yeah, that's, it was challenging, but so was running a business, as everybody knows. So it's something that we adopted. I don't know about how you guys did, James, but yeah, that's certainly from our experience.
Yeah, I mean, we found it challenging. We were moving from 7.0 to 8.0. In fairness, the standards align relatively well. There's a lot of crossover. We could look at 8.0 as a bit of an evolution of what was in place before, and a bit of a refinement, standardization, that sort of thing, and just sort of pulling it more broadly in line with the GDPR compliance stuff. But yeah, we did find it challenging. I think the process made sense. It was time consuming, granted. But when the team are on board and everybody, as you guys were saying, really wants to deliver a high quality service, and it is a service, and I think that's an area that gets missed quite a lot within ITAD. We're a security service. We're providing our clients a secure outlet for their equipment, such that they're protected from missing any of their obligations. So I think if we want to deliver this higher quality service, then finding a standard to rally around makes sense. And it also, I think, introduces quite a lot of extra benefits along the way. And not only has it, helped shape our processes around best practice and helped us to consider risks that individuals within our organization might not have perceived in the supply chain. The sort of transfer of custody and all those elements. I think it's added a lot of value to us as an organization in being compliant, and then by extension our clients, really.
How do you guys find existing understanding of what ADISA is from client to client? Because I know my experience is that small clients that are not ITAD and are more recycling, they're sort of, I don't know what ADISA is. I don't really care about it, to be honest. You're more expensive than somebody else. Someone else is doing it for cheaper. They haven't got ADISA, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not really bothered about it. But similarly, we've got larger clients that they're starting to have more of an awareness already before they might approach us. How are you guys finding that?
I think that's going to be endemic. Actually, I find that same point endemic across most customers in general about what the kind of importance of the standard is. Obviously, I think that now that it's recognised and it's certified by UCAS and it's an official GDPR scheme, we're going to start seeing it elevated where people are actually asking, are you 8.0 certified? It's a little bit of a bugbear of mine that we have businesses such as ourselves and everybody sat on the call and everybody that's going through the process that invests millions of pounds to provide these secure services. And you can see, just looking out the back, James, and I'm sure for all of our compounds there's a lot of money, a lot of thought, a lot of time and a lot of investment gone into providing services across the sector, when certainly at the years gone by and maybe even now, I do feel it getting better that the companies that invest in these kind of security standards, and let's face it, we're doing it to protect our clients' assets. It's an industry, a security industry, as James mentioned, where we're being undercut by companies that can just come and set up with a premises and a set of qualifications that, quite frankly, you can buy off the internet. So I think what it'll do is it'll help legitimize and professionalize our industry, come out of the shadows as, we can get it done for free, almost like, well, if you could just grab it while you're grabbing the garbage kind of thing. It's hopefully fast forward a little while where it starts becoming, hopefully we can shoot towards it becoming mandatory that you're certified to a standard. 8.0 would be the sensible one to go to, because it's the highest and most professional standard, that it gives us all a level playing field. And I think, as James, we mentioned on a call the other day, it also opens up some different prospects about the industry working together, rather than thinking, we're all against each other, so I'm not going to speak to you or converse or share any challenges just simply because you're a competitor. I think once we're all at that standard, bearing in mind, unless one of us can geographically place a facility in every major city in the country, where sustainability and social value objectives are starting to become really prevalent as well. The fact we're not having to send an Arctic, 300 miles north to collect a data center when we've got a partner that's aligned to our certifications and standards, and we're a working user group, then that really, for me, opens up that's just as exciting as for our business passing the standard itself and becoming certified, is how we can work together as a community to really provide a service that aligns with everything we're being marked on, because that is what we're being marked on, a tender level, and private sector slightly different. But that's certainly, I thought it was a great idea, James, which you mentioned, so I'm not taking that one as my own, but I think that's
probably the only one I've ever had, so take this for the credit.
No, yeah, and I think it's good for the I think it's good for the industry. I think it's good for us as businesses. I think more importantly, further down the line, the clients will recognise that it's good for them as well. It's only something that's being put in place to secure everything that we do as a business.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to distinguish that the 8.0 standard isn't just badge collecting. It's not about sort of, as you mentioned before, ticking a box on a tender and saying, yeah, we got that. It's a standardization of the process. I mean, it doesn't interfere with our individual organizations' ability to have like USPs and everything. It just aligns the core services and the security offering. And the fact that we can depend on ADISA to have audited our cohorts within the certified organizations group does mean that, you know, that can take some of the effort out of our even things like our disaster recovery, you know, our business continuity planning and things like that. If we have an incident which interferes with our ability to provide service to our clients, then we can sort of fall back on another similarly certified organization and know that whilst the way that they deliver the service might vary a little, it's going to be aligned in all the ways that really count, you know, in terms of the secure handling of the data, the adequate erasure or shredding and those sorts of things. So I think there's definitely merit there to having this beyond just, as we were sort of saying, checking tender boxes. Well, the other thing, as you kind of alluded to, really, where we've had to invest in a standard that our clients aren't necessarily familiar with, or certainly if we're looking for new business where we've not yet introduced the ADISA certification scheme, somebody had to be first. I mean, you know, we're pleased to be among the first to have the 8.0 standard certification, and you know, now that you know, we are sort of developing a bit of a cohort under this certification scheme, we can expect it to potentially become more universally adopted, not by our the inferior ITADs within the industry, but within the organizations looking to handle their redundant assets securely, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think as well, which you mentioned is, and I think I've mentioned the same thing, where you've got a certain standard or a certain certification that might take a business a week, let's say, to gather. The barrier to entry is very low because we know we only have to a contractor or put somebody internal on the job. When the certification is 9 months of work, you certainly weed out the companies that are serious about the certification as well. So we found, whilst it was, you know, I've been asked before, what advice would I give anybody, you know, thinking about it? I would do it, and I would start doing it now, just simply because if anything does come out of that mandates, that change is kind of, you know, it's actually compulsory for you to have it to go for business within a certain level of sector, or if the, you know, if it's crypto or if it's some kind of data, you know, data sensitivity that requires the highest standard, then, you know, you want to get a jump. And, you know, we've, you know, like you mentioned, we're amongst the first, and there was always going to be a first. But I think obviously as people start to, you know, as we get more information out into the public's, you know, the public domain about what the certification represents, and maybe updates about what the schema actually involves, and, you know, I think that people probably are better looking at it now, because it's an investment in time, money, resource, and obviously you can't just get the certification and move on. It's got to be an ongoing process to adhere to it, and to, you know, to make sure you keep up with the audits.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not an annual box checking exercise or anything like that. There's you have to sort of live and breathe it, a bit like the ISOs. Really, it's not something you just pick up once a year. You sort of form your processes and you model your business around the key tenets of it. Yeah.
And getting your entire team on board as well, so it's not just within the compliance department or within senior management or within the office. It's down on the shop floor as well, effectively in production, and even in your drivers and everything really. It's sort of, yeah, like you say, sort of live and breathe it, not just at the top, but right the way through the business. Otherwise, if people don't believe in it or don't really understand it, then they're not going to commit to it in the same way that we want to, or we want them to as well, I guess.
Sure. I think it's it's quite fantastic that you guys sort of modelled yourselves around the standard as you were kicking off, and we've come in from a previous standard. There are organisations which were pre-existing that are getting on board with the standard, and so it shows that you can come at it from lots of different angles. It's not locking out new. It's a barrier to entry in terms of quality of service, but not necessarily length of service. I've just seen Steve pop up.
Thank you, chaps. 15 minutes up. I said it'd go quite quickly. And somebody's making a cup of coffee in the background there. We can hear.
Sorry. Colleagues, yeah.
That's all right. I'll tell them off. As ever at the end, first of all, I'm going to say thank you. For those of you who've not been involved in ITAD 15, we meet beforehand. This isn't scripted, but they generally have a chat and we try and give a little bit of steering, but this is their content, the guest's content. Otherwise, it's pointless. And so when you're talking about yourself, there's a risk, of course. Chris, thank you for starting off and giving me heart failure. I'm going to pick up on just some sort of summary points, if you like. Chris, you mentioned at the end commitment, and it's a business-wide commitment. We see that across security in data protection. It's not Steve in the post room's responsibility. It has to be a business-wide process, and I think our certification, like anything, is exactly the same. You can't bolt it on, and we've seen that successfully with two new companies, Apex and Rapid, as well. The bit, Karl, that you mentioned earlier on as well, which I quite like. I guess the aspirational perspective of professionalizing not only an industry, but actually a business process, because the customer is involved in this process as well as you guys. And the bit that you were talking about educating the customer is the next stage. Yes, we've built a certification scheme in industry, been very gracious with your comments about improving your business and things like that. That's great. Sycophantic, tap on the back. There's a big but. All of it's pointless unless the customers see value. And if the customers don't see value, the whole thing was, a vanity project for all of us. I'd like to believe, and certainly I wouldn't have been doing this for 12 years, that the customer's journey is just beginning. I believe they do want to have assurance at their end of life asset management process. They do want to make sure that the data has been secured. Otherwise, they won't be in a job very long if they don't. And they do want to promote sustainability through product reuse. And I think that's even more relevant today than it was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Standardization of a sector, professionalism of a sector, innovation is really important. James, I loved what you said about it's not stopping our USPs. You're not all the same. You've got the same standard, but that's the entry point. Barrier to entry, one of you said. It's not meant to be an abrasive barrier to entry, but it's meant to be a mark of quality. And everything else you do from there will add value to your customers. And you're all different, and you all add different value. And it's why it's such a fascinating sector. So I'm going to say thank you very much, chaps. Wasn't quite sure where we would go with that, but it was a fair assumption. I mean, some takeaways for me. Yeah, it was difficult. Good. It feels like an achievement if that's the case. It shouldn't be easy. Otherwise, it's just a badge that you've paid for. The process is long and arduous. Probably, James, because it was new to us as well as you.
Oh yeah.
Our processes are getting slicker as well. So we're going to wear that one and say,
yeah. Neck in our audit too, didn't
you? You were the chaperoned audit, weren't you? So all of this is new, and the whole bit that I want to just close on, and then I will shut up, is the battle's not finished. If there is a battle that we're fighting, we have to get the customers to see ITAD for more than just scrap metal. And hopefully certification will provide some degree of quality assurance for the service that you're offering, and where data is concerned, genuine assurance that it's being managed appropriately, and that will enable us to have proper conversations about the value that we can bring at end of life, because it's more than just picking old stuff up. Anybody can do that. If we're talking about quality services and data protection services, you want to deal with somebody who's credible and confident and professional, and that's clearly where you guys are. So thank you very much for your time. If you can stay on, we'll do a very quick debrief at the end, as I always do with the panelists. For everybody watching, thank you very much. We are going to try and squeeze one more ITAD 15 before the end of the year. It's going to be on data sanitization. We've got some great speakers lined up, some very technical speakers lined up. on that. So more will be coming out about that in the next week or so. So I wish you very well on Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your days wherever you may be, and stay very safe. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, guys.